As president of the national think tank Demos, our next guest devoted her professional work to developing policy solutions to issues of inequality. To be focused on policy is to be focused on progress. It's an inherently optimistic pursuit, one that requires leaning into hope over doom and despair. And it led Heather McGhee to quit her job at Demos to travel around America and meet the Americans who are coming together across racial lines to fight for solutions in their cities and towns. She shares the stories of these everyday people that power American democracy in her brand new podcast, The Sum of Us. Heather McGhee joins us now.
Thank you, Zerlina.
So first off, thank you so much for joining us. It's so great to see you. So you begin your podcast in Montgomery, Alabama, at the site of a former community swimming pool that was drained of all the water and cemented over in 1959 because the community didn't want to racially integrate the pool. And the symbol of the pool is a thread that runs throughout the podcast. Talk about the people that you met along the way and tell us some of the stories that resonate with you as you went about making this podcast.
Well, this podcast is really a sort of a follow-on, another journey to the journey that I took to write the book, The Sum of Us, where the drained pool stands for not just what happened to swimming pools in America that were publicly funded, but what happened to free college in America that was publicly funded, what happened to good family-sustaining wages and good jobs and union jobs, why we didn't ever fill in the pool of public goods around healthcare in the first place in this country. And the single unifying answer is racism in our politics and our policymaking that is so subversive that it actually ends up costing all Americans. And the solution, because racism ends up stopping us from having collective action and doing things together to solve our problems, is for people to come together across lines of race. And so I set out on this podcast to get deeply into the stories of people like the folks that are profiled in the episode that just came out today, a Black former homeless veteran and civil rights leader who teams up with a white disgraced Republican congressional aide from the Abramoff scandal. Like, you really can't make this stuff up, but it's honestly true. And together they helped set the strategy for the campaign to overturn a Jim Crow law in Florida that created a lifetime ban on voters with felony convictions. So there are 9 other stories like this of cross-racial solidarity, people saying, you know what, we've got to refill the pool and make life work better for all of us.
We just have one more minute, but how do people overcome their differences? I mean, we hear so much that we can't talk about race, but you've figured out how. How have you done that?
Well, just in a minute. I really just listen to people like folks that we're going to hear from next week, Bridget and Terrence. Bridget is a white woman, white working class, poverty wage, fast food worker. Terrence is a Black fast food worker. And they were miles apart physically and in terms of ever thinking that they would ever be on the same side. And what ended up happening was that they realized that actually by being divided and by blaming themselves, blaming each other, blaming immigrants for the lack of good jobs, they were actually just playing into the hand of the boss. And so it was through organizing that they were able to come together, become friends, and ultimately win a massive wage increase in their state as part of the fight for 15.